Did you ever wonder why the word cough is spelled the same as rough, but pronounced a little bit differently? Or why it is that the k sound in king, calm, opaque, and track are all spelled differently but produce the same sound? This has something to do with what we call orthographic opacity or transparency. That is, that the orthography, the written system by which we convey language, is a little bit not clear, or the sounds represented by the letters in the orthography don't necessarily always match up. And those sounds are called phonemes, or if they have multiple letters instead of just one unit for one sound, such as O-U-G-H for off, then it's a grapheme. But those phonemes and graphemes are either opaque, not really tell what they're supposed to say just by looking at them, or they're transparent. Now, this problem of transparency in the phonemes or graphemes has been a little bit of a learning issue for people acquiring languages, generally speaking. It was such a problem that when the early pioneers, what became the state of Utah, led by Brigham Young, moved here, and they had several immigrants also moving here with their community, they developed their own new orthography. It was called Deseret Alphabet. Have you ever heard of that? Well, neither had I until I started studying this particular concept in linguistics. Now, the Deseret Alphabet was meant to give better clarity to language learners who were coming and didn't necessarily speak English but needed to. Now, it had a few problems as it got going, and this is why ultimately you and I don't really know about it. There wasn't a great need for it. People were using the Roman alphabet with a significant amount of success in their language acquisition, and it was so well known and easy enough to adopt that, lacking a more significant language crisis, there wasn't really a great need for a new orthography. So the Deseret Alphabet basically failed because of this ultimate lack of need, and that the hurdle of overcoming the language acquisition or the use of this new orthography in order to just acquire a language that was already being taught pretty well with the Roman alphabet just didn't make sense. And so it pretty much died. Now, in my research on this particular orthographic innovation, I identified the need that I just described, also an appeal. There wasn't a great resonant reason or symbolic significance behind learning the new alphabet. And so those who would otherwise be invested in that didn't feel it quite the same as some of the other things that their leadership had presented to them as important for innovating on. And the third thing was accessibility, to create new typesets for printing and to actually create materials necessary for teaching. And then teaching methodologies required for actually presenting the new language acquisition. It was a little bit beyond what LDS pioneers were able or willing to put forward in order to advance this not needed, not very well liked orthographic system. So with that in mind, the need, the appeal, the accessibility, it just failed. Now, in my paper on this topic, I went a little further and identified a scoreable metric in analyzing any new orthographic innovation that linguists might want to consider as they try to advance languages. So you can look at that paper and enjoy the opportunity to consider how we might evaluate our further innovations on orthographic reform. Thank you.